flash. And with that, I'm just going to stop the business meeting, and we're going to turn the program over to Timm Johnson, who's going.
Well, this is called a three-point presentation. We have the tree, no problem. We have the tree that's scrolling below there. We also have a small accent next. Yeah. Okay. Okay, this, you go over here too, though. Okay. Next, Julie. Everyone starts out as a beginner. I want to emphasize that because you see people still too far ahead. And you think they've been in bonsai all of their life, and they have not. They started out, most beginners start out just knowing nothing. And over a period of time, in my case, more than 40 years, I finally learned something about bonsai. The next thing is also important. And I think most of us can relate to this in bonsai. Everyone loses trees. Next slide. I want to emphasize this also. Next. Okay, but before we get to pruning, like I said, I want to get the stuff out of the way first. Okay, so I want to give you a quick overview of the history of bonsai. So the word bonsai. Next slide. That's two words. Okay, for those just starting out, it's pronounced bonsai. Phonetically, bone. Next word is sai. You might have heard something different, but bonsai. What that means is bone is a container, sai is a pot. Bone is a container or pot, sai means to grow or train. And so the literal translation is to grow or train in a pot.
I found it very interesting. Yeah.
Okay, now, in Japan, bonsai is considered to be a national treasure. And because we think of Japan, we think of bonsai, a lot of us think that bonsai actually started out in Japan, but it did not. Okay, so bonsai started out in China more than 2,000 years ago. You can see the drawing, it's an ancient drawing of the year 706. And you can see the individual there has a miniature tree in his hand. That's how far bonsai goes back to China. The Chinese call these miniature trees pinjin. Pinjin. And the Japanese call them bonsai. Both of them use the same Chinese characters, but it still means miniature trees. Okay. Now, Japan came from China. No one knows how. They say some monks might have brought it in. It might have been after the invasion of China into Japan. It doesn't matter how it got there, but about 500 or 700 years ago, the Japanese started doing miniature trees. And it was a natural for the Japanese, Japan itself, because Japan is a small island with very limited space. So anything small with them is a lot better. Plus they have a spiritualistic view of nature, artistic view of nature. And so they just took it over naturally. And with most things that we learn, first the nobility, the rich people, the regal people, they did it first. And then after they tired of it, they let it trickle down to us peasants. And that's what happened in Japan. So it eventually trickled down to those of a lower stature. And about a century ago, it began to develop into what we know now as bonsai. Okay, since it came from China, the Chinese have their style of training bonsai, and the Japanese have a style. First, I'll talk about the Chinese style. It's popular in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Canada, Thailand, and some parts of Europe. It's sharp and angular, and they use primarily clip and grow. Well, they clip and it grows, they clip and they grow, and they clip and they grow. They might use tie dowels, they might use weights. But these things give more of a naturalistic view of plants. But with the Chinese style, you often see bonsai displayed in landscapes, and they have figurines. And sometimes the plants are grotesque, but they might twist them to unnatural shapes and let it grow that way. Okay. Okay. And these are two examples of the Chinese style. If you can see on the left, there's a figurine, there's a horse. Underneath, a clump of trees growing. And the trees are not as refined as we do in here because we use the Japanese style of bonsai. I have a hard time talking to a screen. Right. And on the left, you can see that's a cascading plant, but it does not have the styling that we learned here, which was the Japanese style. Okay. The next style is the Japanese style, and it's used in most other areas of the world: US, Europe, Australia, South America, Thailand, Vietnam, South Africa. And it's a salt and curving style because we use wire in order to train our trees. We put the wire on, we train that branch the way we want it to grow, let it harden, we take the wire off, and it maintains that shape. Okay, and these are two examples of the Japanese style. On the left is a small hawthorn, and you can see how they made a subtle movements there. On the right is a much ginkgo, the same thing. Real subtle moves, but it's more refined. Okay, let's talk about some basic information about bonsai. Okay, there are a lot of myths that go around about bonsai. Bonsai are tortured. You might have heard some of these. Bonsai are grown inside a house. Bonsai are deprived of nutrients. Bonsai are started from special bonsai seeds. You go online right now and key in bonsai seeds, you'd be surprised at what you'll find. People still selling bonsai seeds and people still buying bonsai seeds. And people also think that bonsai are created by using mystical Oriental secrets. Let's look at each one of these. Bonsai are started from special seeds. There's no such thing as a bonsai seed. There's such a thing as a plant seed. If you get a tree that can be used for bonsai and plant that tree, that seed is going to grow into a tree. What makes it a bonsai is the treatment we give that particular tree, the styling. But there's no such thing as a special bonsai seed. I was online a few days ago, and I looked at a place that offered 25 different bonsai seeds. And if you want to get 25 different bonsai seeds, they're out there, you can buy them. Okay, bonsai are grown inside a house. Why is that a myth? Because usually, if you see a show, it's inside. If bonsai are sold someplace, it's usually in a mall or in a nursery, that's usually inside. Okay. So people think that because every time you see a bonsai on display or being sold, it's inside, that they're indoor plants, but they are not. They're outdoor plants. Bonsai are tortured. People see the wire on bonsai, the first thing they think of is that we're torturing that tree. I had a lady approach me once and literally chewed me out because I should have been ashamed of myself for torturing that tree like that. And she convinced me, made me feel kind of bad. And she told me I shouldn't be doing that. Well, you know what I told her. I'm quite sure you know. I just told her a nice way that we're not touching trees. A nice way I said that. I said something different. Bonsai are deprived of nutrients. People think that we don't give the plants enough food. We don't feed them. And that's where they stay small. Let me back up a second to bonsai torture. Kathleen and I, at one time, we had a stag display at the state fair. At this particular time, Kathleen and I were working together. I don't know if you can remember this. It goes quite a ways back. And she approached me and said, this lady was leading 3 or 4 people around our display in a garden setting, and she was wooing and really letting them know how much she knew about bonsai. And I listened in, and what she was telling these people was this. And then she had their full attention because she knew something about bonsai they didn't know. What she said literally was that in bonsai, they only use male trees, and then they castrate. And I thought about that for a while, and I said, well, I don't know if it's possible. Why do you castrate a tree? But you know, that's what people think, that we torture trees. We do not torture trees. Okay, but they are not deprived of nutrients. The last one, bonsai are created using mystical Oriental secrets, but it's not. Next slide. Bonsai are grown by using sound or practical horticultural practices. Okay, there are 3 general areas that you can get plants from: tropical areas, subtropical areas, and temperate zones. The tropical areas are, I list some trees that are ficus, rafus, and flavours that can be used also as houseplants. Now, there's no such thing as a natural houseplant. Plants don't grow naturally in a house, but these can be used as houseplants, accumulated as houseplants. The ones that are broadleaf evergreens. That means they keep the leaves throughout the winter. And I have some of those listed. And the ones from temperate zones are the ones we use an awful lot of: maple, ginkgo, apples, plums, wisteria, grape. These are the deciduous ones. We also use pines and junipers, but I'm going to talk about the first 2, which would be tropicals and subtropicals. Okay, more facts about bonsai. Bonsai must be grown outside. Why? Because they need sunshine. The type tree and where you have it indicates how much sunshine it should or should not get. It needs food: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, as macro elements, and micro elements: iron, magnesium, sulfur, and some other things. When you see those 3 numbers on the fertilizer label, N, PK, that's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, all plants need those in a certain degree, to a certain degree. Okay, we also have a planting medium. That means the soil that we put it in. I put bonsai in, and I said soil, not dirt. We don't plant bonsai in pots and use dirt. We use a soil that we prepare. Okay, we must know the watering. We must know the watering requirements. I mean, not one watering does not fit all. And you can create a planting medium for different type plants and water at the same time, depending on how much water they need. You can put a wisteria in water, like a bog plant, and it will live. If you do the same thing with the pine, you kill it almost instantly. But one size in watering does not fit all. So the idea is, once again, know your plant. Okay. Pruning. We have to know when and how to prune. And that's something I hope to talk about a little bit later. And potting, all bonsai must be on some kind of a potting or repotting schedule, because we have a growing area that's real small, and if we don't have the pot refreshed every once in a while, the plant's going to eventually wither and die. Okay. Plant material. And someone once asked, can any type of a plant be used as a bonsai? Someone ask that question, please. Okay. Carol asked, can any kind of plant be grown as a bonsai? That's a question that comes up quite often. Right. And thanks for sharing that with us. I appreciate that. Okay. But the answer to that is no. No. Why? Because there are certain things that we do to bonsai that could be considered critical to the health of that bonsai. So it must be able to stand the pruning, the bending, and the repotting that we do. The bonsai must be compatible with your yard, with your microclimate. The leaves must be in perspective to the size of the tree. What do I mean by that? A lot of the trees that we use in nature would have extremely large leaves, but we can change the leaf size, and the plant must be able to grow in a restricted area, which is a real small container. And these are things that we must do. And this is why any plant cannot be used as a bonsai. Okay, where do we find bonsai material? Now, a lot of plants we use are indigenous to China, Japan and Korea, and we use those because over the centuries, they've been proven to be good plants for bonsai. We talk maples, elms, azaleas, camellias, and other plants. But trees from other parts of the world can also be used. And these trees are primarily tropical or subtropicals, but also American trees can be used. And this is something different for us because bonsai has only been studied here in America since about the late 50s. And that's when the GIs who came back from the Far East fighting in the Korean War came back with some knowledge of bonsai. At that point it started. So we have native trees, Sierra junipers, California junipers, redwoods, redbuds, and some others. Red maple is a Native American tree, but there are Native American trees. I bring this up for this reason. We have no idea what Native American trees can be used. Okay, if you see something you want to try it. It might work out real good, it may not. But if it doesn't make it, then you know it's not a good tree for bonsai. But the trees out there, there's so many things that we do have. As a matter of fact, the Japanese, when they come here, the Japanese masters, they are in awe about our Sierra junipers and our California junipers. The fact that they can be collected and then transferred to Japan and used, because Japanese are just about extinguished their growing grounds in nature. And so they're more than happy to get our trees. Jody, please. Okay, why is bonsai called an art? Okay, because it needs all the things that an art piece might need. Space, form, shape, line, movement, balance, dimension, color, all these things that the graphic artists, Van Gogh, and some others might use to make art. Okay, and that last word I'll use. Okay, so people ask, how much of bonsai is art? And so about 25 to 30% of bonsai is art. And the other part, horticulture, is about 70 or 75%. In horticulture, we're talking about the potting, the feeding, the watering, the pruning, that's the horticulture part. But in the art, I have here, last one is medium. I said some artists might use canvas as their medium, some might use granite. Okay. What we use for our medium is live plants. Live plants. And I'll try to go through these, okay? This right here is crabapple. This right here is I think it's a beech, but I'm not too sure. Pomegranate, pyracantha, obviously a pine. This is a flowering almond, and this is a ginkgo. These are some of the more popular trees that we use, but there's so many other different types of trees that can be used. Okay, what are the good parts of bonsai? What are we looking for? What are we striving for? Okay, the condition of the roots, that means how the roots strike the earth itself. We look at the appearance of the trunk as it comes up from the earth, the curvature of the trunk, the rugged appearance of the bark, which gives an illusion of age, the appearance of the branches, the size, shape, and color of the leaves, especially during the seasonal changes. The flowers, the fruit, their shape and their color, the position and the size of the top. Some tops can be broad and some can be rather shallow. The girth and length of the trunk itself. We don't want a straight trunk, we want a trunk that sort of tapers. And that's what we're looking for. And the curvature and sense of perspective, and I mentioned that also, we want the leaves and the fruit to be in perspective with the size of the tree that we're using. Okay. Now we can reduce some things in bonsai. We cannot reduce everything. We can reduce the height of the tree. How do we do that? Just cut it down. It's very simple. We can reduce the width, which is the branches and the twigs. We can reduce the leaves on some plants and needles on some plants. And we can reduce the roots. We have to, because we want to keep it in a small container. We have to worry about the small set of roots. We cannot have it reduce the size of the flower because the size of the fruit. But other things we can reduce. We try to style a tree based on the way it grows in nature. I said we try to. It doesn't always work that way, but there are some things that we can do. Things we can do, right? Okay, to make it look like it's going like this, or we can take some of these trees and make a cascade, like I showed with the Chinese tree, or we can make a windswept, whatever the case might be. But these are some of the trees that grow naturally in these particular shapes. Okay, one too many, right, okay. I think we missed, okay, yeah, okay, let's go back one more. Okay, we have 5 basic bonsai styles, okay? And this formal upright, which is, we have a straight trunk, and the branches sort of go left, right, and back from that straight trunk. But we're looking for a straight trunk. For the informal upright, the tree meanders. It's called a moyogi, meanders. Is that my point? Okay, right. Okay, okay, go back one back, please. Okay, now the informal upright, the apex of the tree should center over the base of the tree. Okay, should center over the base. Okay, the next one is a slanting style. It can be a trunk with curvature, or it can be a trunk that's straight. But this differs from the informal upright in that the apex does not center over the base of the tree. It's off to the left or to the right. And we have the semi-cascade. This is not a very good example of a semi-cascade. This is not a very good example of it. It'll come back sooner or later, I'm sure. It's not a good example of it. Hello? Right, okay. Because it should be in a taller pot. In the semi-cascade, I'll talk about that in a few minutes here. Then we have the full cascade where the tree goes all the way down to the base, below the base of the pot. Next. Okay, so bonsai, they can be grown in various shapes and sizes. The name applies to the style, which could be the major feature of the tree. Next. Okay, and these are some of the styles that we use in bonsai. Am I going bad? Is that a bad slide? Okay. Okay, now all of these names probably mean nothing to you. Okay, but I'll try to go through and explain to you what they are. Okay, hokodachi. Okay, that's a broom style. And it's a popular tree. You don't see very many of them, but it's a popular tree, especially in Japan. So you have a relatively straight trunk, and it just has overall broom style. Chokan, which is the formal upright, which has a straight trunk. Fukinagashi, which is windswept, as you can see here, all the branches are influenced by the wind in one direction. Shotgun, which is a slant style. I mentioned the slant style does not have the apex directly over the base. Moyogi, some people say Miyagi, but Moyogi, it has the apex directly over the base. Okay. Now I want you to look at something else. On all these shapes, we have what we call an uneven or asymmetrical triangle. The lowest branch is usually the longest, and it goes up to a shorter branch and goes toward the top. That forms an informal, not an informal, asymmetrical triangle. This right here shows it even better. This one even better. Low branch up to here, here, then back down. Bunjin is where we use the upper portion of the tree. The other ones that we use basically starting with the lower part. As a general rule, the first branch should be roughly 1/3 the height of the tree, as a general rule. There are no fast rules. It all goes with your eye, what you're seeking, what you're going for. This is the semi-cascade. I mentioned I talked to you about that. It's in a taller pot. And the difference on this is it trails down to where the tip is somewhere between the base of the pot, the base of the tip of the trunk, the pot, and the base of the pot. Okay, so here's the tip, it's right in the middle there someplace. The full cascade, it will trail down to below the base of the pot. So the semi-cascade will stop someplace in the middle of the pot, The 4 cascades go all the way down to below the base of the pot. Sokan. Sokan is twin trunk. There can be 3 trunks, 5 trunks, whatever you want. Kabudachi kabu is a radish. And so here you have all these coming out in one spot. Yosei ue, forest setting. Sekijoji is a tree that's planted on a rock. Ishizuki is a tree or trees planted in a rock. Shari Miki, the shari is the dead part that runs along the trunk itself. And then with Ikadabuki is trees that sprout from a fallen log or something of that nature. Okay? Yes. Okay, we have basic pruning tools. And basic pruning tools, especially in landscape, are loppers, hand pruners, scissors, and nippers. The size of the tool you use is determined by the size of the material that you're cutting. Next. Okay. Okay, I think we skipped one. Okay, no, okay, these are bonsai tools. If you notice, a lot of these are duplicates. You know, these 3 here are scissors. 1, 2, 3, 4 are concave cutters. This right here is also a scissor, another scissor. But these are, you know, all bonsai tools of different sizes. Next. Yes. These are also bonsai tools. There's a handsaw. There's a little nipper, a regular pruning saw, pliers. Next. And these can also be bonsai tools. You really want to get some heavy stuff. Is Paul here? No? Okay. Well, Paul likes large trees, and he might use some of these, you know, but next, please. And this is my primary bonsai tool. And you see there are a lot of duplicates in there. Next. Let me explain, you do not need all of those tools to do bonsai. You do not need all of those tools that I showed you to do bonsai. Next. There are 3 basic tools. The first tool you would need is some kind of a scissor. You can use any pruning shears, but with a pointed scissor, it allows you to get in and work real close with small trees. The next thing that you might use is a wire cutter. Any wire cutter will work. But we have the ones that we use have a round tip, allows you to get in real close again and cut the wire without damaging the branch of the trunk. And the third tool is a concave cutter, and it makes a cut that kind of digs into the trunk. And when it heals real smooth. We have 3 types of plants: deciduous, broadleaf evergreen, and conifers. Deciduous are plants that lose leaves during the dormant season. Broadleaf are plants that keep the leaves on the dormant season throughout the year. And conifers are plants that produce a cone and have needle or scale-like growth, as the pine, the juniper, the cypress, redwoods, things of that nature. There's also another called deciduous conifers, where actually they are not evergreen plants because they lose their needles or they scale-like growth. They're larch, don, redwood, bald cypress, tamarix, and that's one more I can't think of right now. Okay. Okay, now that's the stuff. Okay, now I'll get to the pruning. Okay, what is pruning? Trimming of branches, leaves, and dead matter from the plant. It's a selective removal of certain parts of the plant that we don't want on the plant itself. Pruning is where we cut away and trim a tree, shrub, or bush to remove dead stuff, overgrown stuff, diseased things of that nature. Why do we prune? Obviously to reduce the size, to direct the growth of a plant. And in doing so, we control our direction toward new growth. Keep in mind, each cut that we make will direct that growth in another direction. We prune to eliminate live growth that we don't need and to remove dead and dying growth. We prune to encourage and promote the health of the tree, to stimulate and encourage better flowers and fruit production, and to prevent the spread of disease. Okay, pruning objective 1. There are many reasons why pruning a tree is important. Trees respond to pruning. Too much weaker twiggy growth can sap the energy from the part we want to keep. We prune to improve the overall health, to control or direct new growth. And one thing, or two things I want to bring up to you, are suckers and water sprouts are things that we don't need. Suckers are growth that springs from the base of the tree itself, from the roots itself, quite often from a grafted plant. But some can also grow naturally from some trees. There could be a bush or a shrub. An azalea is a good example. An azalea has a lot of sprouts coming up. Yeah, that's the way they grow in nature, but we take them, we make a single trunk out of it. Water sprouts is growth that spring from a branch or from the trunk itself. Meaning what? I could have this branch I'm trying to develop, and all of a sudden you get growth straight up from that branch. If you don't cut that water sprout out, all the energy will go there, and the part I'm trying to develop might die. So suckers we want to get rid of, and water sprouts we also want to get rid of. Okay, now I put my pruning in three, what I call 3 S's. The first one is structure. The second one is shape. And the third is style. I say that to emphasize, this is my thing, okay? Okay, the structure, that's the basic cutting of the plant. I call that the scaffolding primarily. That's where you get something, let's say it's raw or something that hasn't been styled very well, pruned very well, and you cut back to just the basic that you might need in order to develop that plant. Shape is where we take it from that basic cutting and start actually getting smaller branches where we can form what we call an asymmetrical triangle. The third one is style or refinement. Okay, and this is where we take it to another level. And we have a study group, and the person that takes it to the other level, refinement, is Bob. Bob Gay, did he leave already? He'll bring plants in, and I mean, he'll work on one plant for 2 or 3, 4 hours, so we can get it down to it's highly refined. Me personally, I don't go that far. Okay, but you can strap 2 of these together. You can strap the structure and the shape at the same time that you're pruning, or you can strap to the shape and the style of refinement, but you cannot strap the basic cutting with the refinement because you don't have enough growth on this structure to refine it. Okay, with me personally, the exception is Satsuki. Okay, I will refine that a lot more so than I will other plants. Most of my plants in this area right here. Renee was explaining to you about how to refine a maple. I don't usually go that far with my maples. I will do some things which I'll explain to you later, but I don't usually go that far. Okay, next. Okay, when you prune with a purpose. Anyone can prune. Anyone can prune. All you need is a material and stuff to cut it with and cut it off, and that's it. Okay, but you must learn how to prune the type plant that you have and what your overall objective is, what's your desired outcome. And then that can determine how heavily you're going to prune that plant. If you improperly prune a plant and we prune it at the wrong time, you will most likely not get the results that you want. Okay? Heavy pruning, as a general rule, should be done in late fall or winter months. Pruning to remove damaged, dead, or diseased plants can be done anytime. Okay, Renee was talking about the nodes and inner nodes on the trees that she was looking at. Okay, there are two types of plants. We have the alternating growth with left, right, right. Okay, then we have the opposite growth, which is 2 leaves on the same plane. Maples are good for that. Olive, boxwoods, ficus are real good for that. Most trees that we use the alternate method. 1 leaf to the left, 1 to the right, 1 to the left, 1 to the right. Then we have the whirl, which you have growth coming out of one area, maybe 4 or 5 different branches coming out of one area. The azaleas is good for that, and the pines also. There are other trees, okay. But some growth, you can tell where the node is. It's real large, like on a ginkgo, you can tell where that is because it's large, it's enlarged. Others, the node can be anywhere, especially on an aged elm. You might get sprouts anywhere on that trunk, anywhere at all. But no matter what we do, we still try to keep the asymmetrical triangle. Okay, now the node. Okay, a node is where a leaf will grow. Like right in there, right here. At the base of that leaf is the auxiliary bud, the nascent bud, the dormant bud, and it stays there and it will just be nascent and just rest until you cut the leaf off. Once you cut the leaf off, then it spurs this particular node into action and it will grow to replace that leaf. Nodes is also where you can develop a branch. Wherever there's a leaf, there's a potential branch. And so if you're pruning, you don't want to prune back real hard and cut into the trunk itself. Always leave a stem. And this way, it will die back naturally and the bud will not be damaged. If you cut back too hard, you might cut that bud out and lose the opportunity of another leaf growing or maybe a potential branch. When do we prune? Okay, this is something I found. It's good information. I will not go into this. It'll be online on our site, right? Okay, so you can look at this a little bit later. But okay, let's go to the next one. But generally, in flowering plants, we want early spring growth. Generally now, we prune in the late summer. Late summer for early growth. Forsythia is one of the first plants to come out in the early spring, late spring, I guess I should say. Ume, or the flowering apricot, is another. But we prune these, you know, in late summer. But late spring growth, we prune those in early to late winter. And so that gives it a chance to grow. Now, the exception might be with the Satsuki, azaleas, or the camellias. We prune those immediately after flowering. Generally, you can prune almost any plant after it flowers and fruit, and it'll give it a full year to recover. Yes, I'm fertilizing again. Not all, one size does not fit all. Okay, now Carmen, I understand she's looking at this presentation. She said she had a crab apple that's never given her any blossoms. And I explained to her that crab apples need 2-year-old growth in order to set flowers and fruit, 2 years old. So if you prune every year, you'll never get that 2-year growth. So you have to prune, then wait and allow that branch to actually form these fruiting spurs. Then the next year, you should get the growth. So 2-year growth. Okay, a lot of flowers bloom only on new wood. But for apples and crab and some others, you need 2-year growth. That's for fruiting plants. Deciduous plants, maples, liquid amber, ginkgo, we want to stop the terminal growth. Renee was mentioning that before. We want to make sure that in the wintertime, a tree would just grow, especially a maple. If you don't stop that bud growth, its end growth, it'll continue to grow longer and longer and longer. By the time June or July gets around to it, you might have a growth maybe 1.5 to 2 feet from the point that you want to stop it at. So you must clip that end growth, and it forces the energy back in and gives you side branches. Like with watering, one size does not fit all. Elms, hackberries, and trees that has twiggy growth, wait until the buds enlarge, wait until the leaves are opening before you prune them back. Why? Because in nature, the way nature makes these things twiggy is that nature will kill the tips of the buds. Okay. And then what's left will grow. What we do is we wait until we can determine whether or not the bud is alive or not, and then we'll prune back. This way we don't lose anything. Oak trees, a lot of oak leaves stay on the deciduous months. So we prune oaks after the leaves fall. Okay. And I do this, and I do this. We say pruning or trimming, we use those interchangeably, but there's a slight difference. Pruning is where we remove unwanted or dead, infected, or dead branches. Trimming is where you cut back any unneeded healthy growth. So what we're saying is pruning removes what's useless and what's harmful. Trimming cuts away on what's taking over or impeding your design. Where do we get plants? A guy asked me that and jokingly, Tim, where do you get bonsai? I said, from my backyard. And I do have a few plants, okay. But the best place to get bonsai is at bonsai shows or club meetings. Bonsai shows first. I don't think Renee mentioned this. At our show, we'll also have a consignment area where you can bring trees in to where you can sell. Okay, you can talk to Sylvia and she can tell you, I think it's also in our newsletter, correct? Yeah. But if you want to sell something, you can bring those in. But okay, but bonsai shows and club meetings, we also allow member sales at our club meetings. Talk with the treasurer about that also. The next best place is at bonsai nurseries. And we buy from bonsai nurseries because the trees are usually kept small. We can buy also from plant nurseries, home improvement stores, supermarkets, but most outdoor plants at those places are sold for landscape purposes. So you get tall trees, basically, you have a graft, so one tree is fused onto another, you get a graft that quite a ways from the ground. But these places also sell small, what they say are bonsai. I say they're small and they're not styled very well, and they can cost you quite a bit of money. A third way is to collect or dig a plant. And we call our urban collecting, where we dig plants up from our yard or from a neighbor's yard with permission, okay? And also maybe from the wild. So you can go up in the Sierras, let's say, or any place where there are trees growing, you see small trees growing about. You must get permission from whatever agency oversees that particular land to get that tree. If a park ranger person catches you, you can be fined and you do not get to keep the tree. So once again, that word with permission is pretty important. Uh-oh, you looked at Paul for some reason. Okay, how do we select a plant? Okay, the first thing we look at are the roots. The roots should radiate around the base of the tree. Here we can't see the back. We can assume there's a root back there, but if not, at least we can see maybe 3/4 of it. And we can graft roots if we need be. Okay, we select a tree by the desired height we want it to be. Reduce that. We want a trunk that's tapered. It can be scarred or damaged. Now, just because you see damage on a trunk doesn't mean that can add to the creation that you're trying to make. You know, because some scars are just beyond use. But the trunk and also an interesting bark. Usually, a young tree would have smooth bark, but as it ages, it will get and add to the value of the tree. Branches. If you're just starting out, get a tree with as many low branches as you can find. The more lower branches, the better. The leaves should be small or in perspective to the anticipated size of the tree. Now, I mentioned before, we can shrink leaves on some trees, not everything. But keep in mind, if you can, you want to be at least be inside in perspective with the tree itself. And we select a tree for the best features. If we want a tree that's flowering, we want it for fruiting, we want the leaf color, or we consider the seed pod. Some trees have cactus that hang out that are very attractive. If we can, we buy that tree when it's exhibiting the thing that's attractive to you. If you want a plant with a red flower, if it's flowering red, you know you're getting yourself a red flower. Okay. The fruit, okay, this could be an apple tree. but then you take it home, it's a plum. You're taking the word of a person. If you go to a reputable nursery, they're going to tell you most likely what's right, what's wrong. But other people, even online, they can mislead you on that. You want plants with a certain leaf color. The maples are beautiful, different colors, reds and the orange and the yellows. Okay, you might want to buy it when it has that leaf color. If you want a seed pod of a certain kind, when it's showing that particular trait of that plant, that's when you buy that. So if you can, buy it when it's showing the feature that you're looking for. Buying tips. These are some things I've come across through my 40 years plus of playing with bonsai. I said playing with bonsai. We don't work on hobbies. We play with hobbies. Okay. So keep that in mind. Okay. So the most important thing when you talk about the age or the value of a plant is the plant itself. The plant itself is the most important thing. And we look at the age of the apparent age. The actual age doesn't mean that much, but how old does it look? We want to consider that. Is it old looking or is it a young looking tree? The type of material. Some material you can get anywhere. You can buy boxwood any place at all. Any place at all. But you may not be able to buy an exotic or rare maple or a rare, let's say, azalea with a certain leaf or a flower type. So the type of material, is it easy to get or is it something exotic or relatively hard to get? The size does not necessarily indicate how much or how valuable the tree is. Because we could have a shohin, which is a tree from the base up about 10 inches above the base, could have a lot more value than a huge tree that stands about 2 or 3 feet tall. Depends on how the person has trained the tree, how long they've had it, the type tree it is. But the size does not necessarily dictates the value of the tree itself. The structure is well styled, partially styled, raw material. But when you talk about structure, you consider the potential of that tree, the styling potential. And you're also thinking about how you want to shape that tree. You want it upright, you want it cascade, you want root over rock, all those things you think about when you're buying that tree. How many trees it has. That doesn't have that much to do with the value of the tree itself. I'll put it this way. The value of a bonsai, the way I see it, is how much you will sell it for and how much the other person would buy it for. That's the value of that tree, okay? But if you can't come to some kind of agreement, it has no real value except to you because it's your tree, okay? But you might look at how long it's been in trading. Is it a healthy tree? Does it have weeds around it? A lot of scars, insects, pests. How was it obtained? We get it from a nursery, or was it collected? And then once again, the best features, the flower, the fruits, the leaf color, seed pods, things of that nature. These are all things that can alter the value of a bonsai. Bonsai, next one more, please. More tips. If it's in a bonsai container, look at the container. Is it a ceramic container? Is it plastic, antique, unusual, unique, or is it in a nursery pot? The overall composition. Does the pot complement the plant? Okay, does the pot complement the plant? Okay. If you have a tree, let's say on display, and the person walks up and says, oh my goodness, that's a beautiful pot. You waste your time in trying to develop a bonsai. Okay, okay. But if they walk up and that's a beautiful plant, and they basically ignore the pot, but if it's complementary, then it will be noticed. You would not take a red flower and put that red flower into a red pot. There's no contrast. So the pot is like a frame, let's say, it has to complement the tree itself. Okay, the value of the material versus the value of the pot. What are we talking about here? There are times that you might want the plant. It's a bonsai pot. And all of us in bonsai will do this, right? I love this plant, but I don't care about the pot. I want the plant. So I buy the overall composition. At the right time, take it, transfer it to something I want to put it in, and then later sell the pot. Or vice versa. I want the pot, I don't care about the tree. I buy it, get rid of the tree and keep the pot, or whatever I want to use it for. So the value is something that you might consider. But overall, you might consider what you like about the composition, no matter what the other factors might be. If you happen to like that, you have to live with this plant or die with it, whichever. So you have to go by what you really desire, okay? Okay, this is a little personal advice I've come across by talking to people. I've been at this for 40 years, and I've heard a lot of different things. And so some things I take with a grain of salt, and other things I listen to, but I just ignore it, okay? But, okay, one thing I want to emphasize is that no one person can teach you everything you need to know about bonsai. Everything, no. They feel that they can teach you what you need to know. But no one, knowledge is not all inclusive. One person doesn't know everything. A person can teach you their experience, their knowledge, but they can't teach you everything. This is why you see professionals in an audience of a presentation of another professional of equal stature, equal status, because they're learning from that other person. Even that other person might be a professional like you are, okay? But my advice is to learn from everyone, from all sources. And then some people that you may not like, it does not matter. If they are saying something interesting, something that's worthwhile, listen to them. You can learn something from them. Now, you don't have to apply everything that you hear, everything that you learn, but at least listen to what's being said. Okay, and this right here, initial bonsai material, if at all possible, avoid 4-inch liners. When I was teaching, the Sacramento Park and Recreation District, numerous times I had people come with a 4-inch liner with a twig. You know, it might be 2 inches, 2 years old, and maybe stand about 3 or 4 or 5 inches from the pot itself. You know, can you make this into a bonsai? Well, you know, I don't really like to discourage people from trying bonsai. So I'd be real nice to tell them that, you know, that tree has an awful lot of potential, an awful lot of potential. Take it home, put it in an oversized container or in the ground, let it grow 4 or 5 years, and then we can look at that tree and get its potential. But we cannot do anything at all with a straight twig, because a bonsai needs branches in order to work. And so if it's real small, like I said, try to avoid the 4-inch liners. I would say if you can, start with a 1 gallon or larger, and make sure that it does have branches. Attend as many workshops and demonstrations and shows and meetings as you can. It's always knowledge to be learned. You're around people with like-minded, they're into bonsai also. So attend those places and talk with people and then learn what they can teach. Everybody can teach you something. But you just have to listen. And like I said, you don't have to do everything that you're told, but at least consider what they're saying and see if it might benefit you in some kind of a way. So if you've been in bonsai about 2 or 3 years, and you understand plants and how plants grow and everything like that, and you learn basically how to take care of a bonsai, then you might consider moving up. Some people moved up right away and now they have to come down anyhow. But once you have those 2 things under your belt, then you might consider getting yourself a semi-style bonsai with the intent of development to be a show tree. And I mean show trees because show trees is where our club structures stuff, so to speak, where we show off what we have. If no one ever put trees in a show, we could not have a show. So develop a tree that can be eventually put into a show. Okay, that's my personal advice. Like I said, listen to everything, but you don't have to apply everything you hear. Okay. All right. And some people say, don't look at books, don't look at things that are online, don't go to club shows. I will teach you everything, okay? But there are a lot of books out there. And if you look and see, you know, who the people are, and you can search them, you find out they're reputable, and obviously take the advice from them. You can also take advice online. You might see out there chats about people how to improve a bonsai. And usually bonsai are relatively, that they're using are relatively immature trees. How would you improve this? They say, I would do this and I would do that. Okay. Well, to me, that's not a reputable site to go to learn bonsai. Go to someone that's been around for a while, someone that understands bonsai, that's been doing it for a while. My recommendation for those just starting out is this tree, this Sunset magazine on bonsai. It's for sale right now. Can be pretty expensive. Here it takes you from beginner to what I call advanced beginner or intermediate, step by step by step. Okay, this is one plant, one tree book I would recommend. The other is this right here, Miniature Trees and Landscape. It's a little bit more involved. In here, they have an area there that will give you the horticultural and styling requirements of up to 300 different kinds of trees. Oh, by the way, this is on sale online. You can get one for as little as $7 and up to $47, $50 if you get a hard copy. Most of the time, you get one that's been used, but it's still good information. I think Doty got one here recently. Same tree, same book, right? But this right here tells you how the tree can be styled, when to prune it, when to repot, the feature of the tree, whether it has flowers, blossoms or not, when to wire. You know, it gives you all these techniques or the knowledge you might need in order to style a tree. But keep in mind that this tree was written in Japan. So they're going basically with the Japanese environment. Keep in mind here, like I said, is that we are maybe a month ahead of them as far as weather is concerned. So when you're doing anything at all, especially a tree from out of country, consider when their trees are growing versus when ours are growing. Here in Sacramento, we have a growing season, which is like 10 months out of the year, 10 and a half months out of the year. And so our trees are always growing. Other people only have that 4 or 5 months, if that much. But whatever you get, you know, temper it to what our climate is right here. But the other trees are good. Here's one that says indoor bonsai. Okay, it's relatively new, and some bonsai can be grown indoors, but not taken inside and just left indoors like a house plant. But you can take it inside for a while and admire it and put it back outside, where it gets all the elements that nature provides. That's indoor bonsai. Is another that says the art of indoor bonsai. But the books are here. Here's one here that says Bonsai Pinjing. Okay, bonsai being Japanese, Pinjing being Chinese. And I think this is by a Chinese artist. But the books are out there. Golden Statements is the magazine of the Golden State Bonsai Federation. You can get a subscription to that. And they deal with primarily with trees and with clubs here in this.
They don't publish that anymore.
They do not? Okay. There are old copies you can get online.
Actually, there's some right here.
Okay.
In the raffle.
Okay.
The,
Yeah. Mhm. I'll be very short. Yeah, right. Okay, we'll have a break here shortly. Okay, very, very short. I'll go back. We're going full circles, another two, okay? And I'll go you out in the beginning, please. Everyone started out as a beginner. Renee, your time is perfect. Okay, remember, everyone starts out as a beginner. And the next slide, 1, 2, everyone loses trees. And one more, and let's put emphasis on that. Next slide. Okay, everyone loses trees. This is a tree I had in my collection for about 10 or 15 years. No, go back one more. Okay, this tree is growing in a rock. It's a weeping, or was growing in a rock. It's going to bonsai heaven now. But it's a weeping red leaf fall cypress. And after about 10, 15 years, I decided that I needed to refresh the soil because it's a small growing area right there. And I tried to dig it out and it did not make it. I have the rock, the stone, but I do not have the tree. And the next one, okay, we're going to take a break and then we're going to do show and tell. All right. And this right here will be one of my show and tell. This is a flowering crabapple, a fruiting crabapple, I'm sorry. And I started this from an air layer that was about 8 inches tall, with the base of the diameter about an inch and a quarter. Right now, the tree is about 30 inches tall. Oh, sorry, started in 1989. Okay. Right now, the tree is about 30 inches tall, about 24 inches wide, and the base is about 3.5 inches in diameter. Okay, next one, and this is a tree when it's in flower. Okay, and I had hoped to show it, have it in our show, but nature didn't cooperate, so it's spent. Next. Okay, Owari means that's it. That's all I have for right now. And okay, we have a break. Comes out. Okay, the inner node is between two nodes. Like you were saying, that we don't want any growth with long nodes, especially up top of the tree. The lower part of the tree is not as critical as the top of the tree itself. So this right here is a node. This is a node. All right. So if I were to prune back to here, I still have a long node. And so what I'd want to do with it is take it back to the one right here and let it grow out from there. Maples, I'll get something that's a little bit easier to see. I mentioned before that we have trees that have alternating growth and we have opposite growth. Maples, and this is a olive, they both have the opposite growth. Look here, you can see if this would be the same thing if the trunk itself. You can see where there are two that are vertical, horizontal, vertical, horizontal. This is the way it grows. All right. So what we do in a situation like this, we want to prune back to where we have the horizontal growth. This way we have it flaring out left and right. You work the prune where we had the vertical growth, what would happen is the branch would go straight down and one would go straight up. If you have a situation whereas you have no choice but to prune back to where you have the horizontal or the vertical growth, you would cut the top and leave the bottom. Why? Because then it's going to kind of grow up towards the light. You know, even though it's going down, it's going to go back towards the light and kind of even itself out. If I cut the bottom off, it's going to go straight up. We want them to flare out left and right, left and right. And that's the way a maple grows, and this right here, and some other plants also. But the main thing is the nodes. And the shorter the nodes, the better it is for design purposes. That's a long node between here and there. All right. And so I can cut back to here, but they're straight up and straight down. We don't want that. The next one is here. The one here is horizontal, so I would cut back to here and let it grow out, and this way they'll flare out. When it starts flaring out, they start the same thing. But in maples and most deciduous trees, we must stop the terminal growth. If we do not stop the terminal growth, it will go longer and longer, and by July, this branch will be all out in here. But if you stop the terminal growth, it feeds the energy back in and makes it bushy. Renee was talking also about leaf pruning during the right time of year. What that is, okay, keep in mind I'm talking about healthy trees. What we do, and Clarence also said this, you take the leaf off and leave the petiole of the stem. Okay, just take the leaf off. We don't cut all the way down to the base. You just leave the stem. And what happens if you have these auxiliary or nascent or dormant buds that are in here at the base of a leaf, then they will start to grow and give you a new leaf and a potential branch. Okay, but the main thing is when you prune where you have two horizontal. Okay.
Back to that a second.
Where
The difference between the horizontal and the vertical.
Okay.
I couldn't tell the difference.
Okay, let's say this right here is a branch that's growing. I've cut it too short already. All right. And you can see there are two here side by side.
Yeah.
Horizontal. These two right here, see the leaf going up and going down? That's vertical. All right. Side by side, horizontal. I turn it the other way to be the same thing. You know, depending on the way the branch is growing. These right here become now the vertical, and these side by side become horizontal.
And they're always going to alternate at the nodes?
Yeah, right, always. So as long as it grows, the trunk would do the very same thing if you allow it. But we take off the trunks, ones off the trunk, and use the top portion. I've had this in my yard in 1996, just growing. And I hadn't done anything with it. I decided I'd put it into a pot. Right. Okay, so that's the maple.
When you're defoliating, I've never done this. So you taking all of the leaves off, or does it depend?
Okay, it all depends on, number one, healthy plant. If the plant's not healthy, don't do it. All right, and you cannot do it on all plants. Some plants will work and some will not. But but you want to take off, you can take off all the leaves, as Renee said. If you're not too sure, you can just take it and cut the leaf in half. Okay, and that will stop all the growth going to that leaf. And eventually the auxiliary bud at the base of that leaf will take over. Right. Yeah, but if a real healthy tree, you can do that. Extremely healthy tree, you might leaf prune 2, maybe 3 times in the summertime, depending on how fast it's growing. And the type tree it is also. Okay. Some trees is real obvious where the nodes are. Other trees, it is not. The ginkgo, we can tell what these are. Very obvious, okay? And so with the ginkgo, you don't want to really prune, same with the elm tree, until you can actually see the buds starting to open. And that's the best time for doing it. This right here is an elm tree, all right? There are some things in here that are still dead. If you prune growth, you might be cutting off something that's dead or something that you might need. So we wait until we can actually see growth and we can cut back. Okay, that right there is dead. We can take that out with no problem. We just go through. Now we can actually see what's growing. Otherwise, we wouldn't know because the buds are so small you cannot see them what they should be. Right. But this right here is a Zelkova, small leaf Zelkova, which is a gray bark elm. Right. And the reason that you prune these real hard because you want a lot of ramification, a lot of twiggy growth. That's where they grow in nature. And matter of fact, in some shows, they'll have a fall show where they show nothing but winter show, I guess I should say, nothing but the twigginess. And that has a beauty of its own. Okay, that's an elm. Also, a hornbeam. Let me get the hornbeam right quick. In pruning, one size does not fit all. You can stop me anytime you want to. Okay, this is a hornbeam, a weeping hornbeam, is that right? Okay, now I mentioned before, you prune with the purpose. Why are you pruning? You prune with the purpose. Okay, the beauty of this tree, in addition to the fall color, is the fact that it has these catkins that hang down. Okay, but they must be fertilized by a male tree. This tree, the male tree and the female tree are all in one. If you prune too early and cut off the tips, you could be pruning off the male because the male's on the outside.
Castrating.
Excuse me?
Castrating.
Oh, no, oh, that's different, that's different. That's a little bit different, right? Okay, so I said one size does not fit all. With the hornbeam, you want to wait until you can actually see the catkins forming, and then you can cut back. You know, once they fertilize on their job, you can cut them back, and then the female trees can put down the catkins. I pruned this because I wanted more twiggy growth, so I have no catkins on it this year, none whatsoever. Because I said one size does not fit all. Here we're going for twigginess. Here, the feature is having the little brackets of the catkins hanging down. You don't want to do wisteria? Anyone like wisteria? Okay. Okay, no, hit this right quick. I bought this in, it's not flowering. It's still in the process of flowering. Clarence is beautiful, beautiful, right? Okay, this is called, it's a Chinese wisteria, it's called prolific. And I've had this broom maybe 3 times a year in some years, all right? And then what I've done right here, I will wire mine. In pruning these, you want to prune to where you get movement, okay? So this is going here, straight right. If I were to prune right here, it will continue going straight. So what I do is next time around, is I'll alternate and prune the way it grows this way. The way the leaf is forming is the way it's going to grow. So you cut it off to where you leave a little stub, not right at the base, but about an eighth or quarter of an inch stub, and it can change directions. And so you want character in your plant. You want to have that direction. Now what I've done here, I will wire mine. These two are going together. So what I'll do on the off year, I'll move this and put a little movement into it. I'll move this here so I'll have the flowers that are separated. Okay, and I might bring this forward. This will have a tree in this area, a flower in this area and one in this area also. But I try to place my branches where there are flowers. And if you cut off too early, you might be cutting off a flower bud. In growing wisteria is a vine. And so it's always reaching out for as much light as it can get, because in order to form flowers, it needs a lot of energy, a lot of water and a lot of energy. So what we do is, instead of clipping back, we just let it grow out. Right here before was a flower bud. I'm gonna show you this. God, I hate to lose my flowers, but I'll do it. Okay. Once the flowers are expended, okay, and they're starting to dry up, you just stripped the flowers off. We leave this. This way you'll know where the flowers were. And just let the rest of just grow and grow and grow. So when you prune back to where this stops. And everything else in here should be flower buds. Okay. Yeah, I hate to do that because I have so very few of them. Right. But it's worthwhile if I can teach something right. Okay. But this right here was a flower, like I said. And that was a flower right there. But that's the way you do it. Let it grow as much sunshine as you can give the wisteria. Do not feed it with nitrogen, NKP. You don't want to feed it with nitrogen. You want the upper two numbers to be high and the nitrogen to be low. A 2-10-10 would work real good. A 14-14-14 is a bit too complete. We get equal share of each one of those nutrients. You know, but that's what we want to avoid. Yes, that's just all.
Is that wisteria specific or for vines in general, vine based?
Well, I can talk about wisteria vines in general, I can tell you, right? But it could be, yeah. If it's a vine, it's reaching, right?
Yeah.
And so let it grow, put it in your yard somewhere where it gets full sunshine, make sure it has a lot of water. And as it grows, just twist the vines and keep it as compact as you can, but just let it grow. And then later, go back to where the flowers were, about November or so. and then cut it back and then just have flower buds. Okay.